going on? You're tuned into the Status Network, the live TV channel. This is the Conversation Corner with your host, the author Andrew Snorton. And as we do every second and fourth Wednesday about 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have some great guests doing some great things across entertainment, business, community, and more. So before we get into our first guest for the evening, we'll take care of some station announcements as well as announcements on how to stay connected with yours truly. Yes, that would be me. So first off, thank you so much once again for tuning into the show, not only supporting my show, but the entire Status Network family of television shows, channels, movie channels, radio, you name it, we do it here. To best enjoy tonight's show, make sure to go to statusnetwork.net on the web. On the big old box, click on Conversation Corner and you're good to go. For those of you that have room on your smart devices, download the Status Network app, click on channels, click on LYVE Live TV, and you're good to go. On social media platforms including Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and others, make sure to add Status Network as well as LYVE Live TV. For those of you that have Roku and Amazon Fire Stick, make sure to go ahead and tune in on the Status Network. And again, add me on Facebook at the page Author Andrew Snorton and show how much you care. Make sure you hit share. And now let's take care of our quick announcements. And Status Network has its own film channel. So if you or someone you know, documentaries, full film, short film, independent film, you definitely want to make sure to connect with us. You'll get exposure on Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and other great platforms through Status Network. So make sure to go to the bottom of your screen. Make sure to contact Status Films by email and phone so you can go ahead and get the exposure you need. And, of course, remember, I am an author, so in order to get your copy of either Nothing Minor, which is the book on minor league baseball, as well as a shout-out to the Negro Leagues, 9 Stories of Faith, Deeper Than Your Deepest Sleep, Thoughts on Love with Joseph Snorton, you can get those on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, even on Apple. And for the audiobook series, The Author's Mixtape, you may download that collection of spoken word music and more on any of almost 300 different platforms, including the ones you see here. So make sure to go ahead and add to your library, get connected, and stay connected with yours truly. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our first guest. And anytime we get a chance to talk with people in music, we are just so excited and so grateful. So we have right here artist extraordinaire, whether it's music, hip-hop, writing, you name it. This is a quality act, creative act. We have Tsukiyomi joining us. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing really good. I'm exquisite, actually. How about yourself?
See, there you go. See, I already said extraordinaire. You used the word exquisite. So smooth. You must be an artist, definitely. Hey,
I'm a bit of a poet.
just a little bit. Before we get into the music, share with our viewers a little bit about your backstory. Where are you from? And before you decided to pivot into music, what were some of the other moving parts or other different things that you had an interest in?
Well, I'm from Havelock, North Carolina. I was born on a military base in Cherry Point. My father was in the Marines. My mother was in the Navy. I moved around a lot as a kid. I didn't stay there long. Like, as soon as I popped out the womb, I was city to city, state to state. Growing up, I was about 12 or 13 years old, right before I made the pivot into music. I was just working side road jobs, doing produce, mowing like big lawns, helping this guy named Jimmy who was trying to teach me better work ethic to keep me out the streets, you know. He was like, man, I see you trying to hustle, you're trying to help your mom, but you're too young to work. And if you keep going the route you're going, you're going to end up dead or in jail. What do you know about work ethic? And that's when I'm like, hey, I may be 12 years old, but if you can teach me how to make honest money and not be at risk all the time, then yeah, let's go. And I worked for that guy until I was 16. And every dollar he gave me, I used to build the studio when I was around 13. So around that, after that first year making some coins, my homies were like, you know, we were in high school. They're like, man, excuse my language, but they were like, man, we need some bitches. And I'm just like, how are we going to do that? They're like, we got to make music.
and And I'll tell you what, it's funny because, using creative license, well, we'll just say this, using creative license, there are different levels of creativity. We're going to put it there. But I think what was really impressive of what you said, even early, you had the work ethic and you knew you were wanting to work hard towards something. You might not have known exactly where and you might not have known exactly how, but you knew that if I'm going to do whatever, I've got to be dedicated to the craft.
Well, growing up in that environment where money is getting tight, family separating, and you're trying to take care of yourself and your people in the household, you start to put the toys away fast. And when my friends were like, "Hey, we need to make music," I was the first guy to always get an idea and have everybody hop on. But I'm the guy hopping on their idea, and I'm like, okay, well, what does it take to get started? And all our other ideas, Beyblades, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, whatever the kids want to play, it's a little bit of money, something cheap you can get from the store. But they were talking about music, and I'm sitting here working this little side job at 12, 13, 14 years old. And the equipment is like hundreds, thousands of dollars, and I'm like, hey, if I'm going to be spending money on getting this equipment and putting it in my house, I'm going to get damn good at this and I'm going to make my money back. And that's what I did.
and I tell you what, even like once music, I'll say, hooked you, you did what you needed to do to not only, let it really get a stronger foothold. Now, before getting into music style, everybody to varying degrees, there's some type of artist or some song or what have you that you kind of like gravitated towards. Who would you say, as you're putting your music together, who would you say were some of the artists or some of the influences that you might have, grown up? And there's always that track, let me play it back, let me run it back. Who are some of those artists that you could say, hey, these are artists that really kind of kept my drive going regarding music?
Okay, now when it came to just figuring out like what my emotions were, it was a lot of Sum 41, Avenged Sevenfold, Breaking Benjamin, Pierce the Veil, bands like that. Obviously in the older household, coming from my grandparents and my parents, we had like the Marvin Gaye and the Genuine and stuff like that. So I'm used to hearing that soulful R&B feel, but something in my youth had like a nice punk rock feel. And then when my brother introduced me to like, hey, nah, you don't have to hate hip hop. Like, it's not all ignorant. Like, there's some good rappers out there. First few guys he put me on were Eminem and 50 Cent. And then it went to Lil Wayne. And from there, it was like, yo, there's a whole world of people. Then it was Drake. Then it was Nicki. And then it was Party Next Door. After that, Travis Scott. You start going back. We got Kid. And it became so big. It just became so big. There were so many different inspirations. So what I did was, while I was learning to engineer, building my studio, I just got some nice album cuts. And I was like, hey, to develop my sound, I'm going to find some really well-produced albums that are good to my ears. And I'm just going to emulate those sounds over and over again until my brain and my engineering style evolves that sound. And one album that I always refer back to is Drake's Nothing Was the Same. That was the sound that inspired the start of like the hard hitting kicks and those ambient sounds in the background, and the way that I put the ad libs in tuck in all the different reverbs and delays and the undering of the main vocal, like all of that little technical stuff, that's stuff that I listened to from that album. And then some other albums that I have in the cut was Party Next Door's First Colors. I just like the way that sounds. And then his first tape. And yeah, those were the first 2 or 3 albums where I really just honed in and was like, I want to develop my sound off of this sound. Now, as far as my entire sound catalog, I can't even go on to explain that. We're talking music, we'll be talking for hours. I got CDs on CDs on CDs, albums on albums. Also, one I have to shout out is Earl Sweatshirt's Once again, excuse my language, but the album is I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. That album gave me phenomenal eeriness and darkness that I know how to underlay some dark tone grit, sort of like a dirt sound into the tracks that kind of make them muddier, but not muddy in a way where it's distorted, muddy in a way where you can understand the artistic expression of it. But that's something else.
No, but I'm glad you're walking through that because, like, and I always say for any artist, you know, music or otherwise, it is a craft, and there's levels to it, and showing, you know, depth and detail, and even during that explanation, you were showing I've got a command of what I'm doing. Like, would you say, in regards to learning what you've learned, was it a combo of being self-taught and other people teaching? Was it just when you would listen to different tracks, was it something that would pop up and you'd see, let me see if I can duplicate that or go beyond it? Like, walk through a little bit more of that creative process.
Okay. So, greatest quote I've ever learned as an artist is, you know, the greatest artist steal shit. So, so what I'm essentially doing is I'm finding the classics. I'm finding what's nostalgic to my taste. I'm not looking for what's current in today's sound. I'm looking for what's that one piece of today's sound that kind of reminds you of something you can't put your thoughts on. And then I go for that sound. And I try to find a way to recreate it with the most popular bass lines I've heard, with the most popular melodies and choruses. And I just revamp and I refurbish. I not only do that with my voice, but I also do that with my lyrics. I do that with my writing style, the way I choose to piece my lyrics together. And then after I deliver, I go in the studio and I engineer and I attempt to do that with the sound. And you were correct. So growing up, it was a mix of being self-taught, other people teaching me, and ideating the sound in my head. I remember a quick instance, and I'm only going to mention this instance because it's an instance that really helped me level up. So in the midst of my engineering for like hundreds of different local artists, not the best guy, but I'm like very communicative and I'm creative. So people are coming back to me and they're actually paying me early on. Like I got paid when I was like 13, 14. As soon as I started getting it up and running, people were paying me for my time just out of respect. So it wasn't even like the craft was there. It was just the drive and the respect. But as I'm building these sounds, I hear somebody give me the advice. They're like, hey, kid, you know, this engineering on your own is great and you're getting better, but you got to step into somebody else's studio just to get a feel, just to network and connect. And that's when I started to learn that the industry was about really building relationships. It's not what you can do for yourself or what you can do for other people, just who do you know and how good of friends are you? So I was like, okay, I'll do some collabs around the city. Some of the bigger guys who were taking note of me around the city were like, nah, we'll pay for the studio time. We'll pay for the car rides and stuff. You just need to find a way to show up. And we'll get in the studio and we'll knock out some work. So I go to the studio, and long story short, there's this engineer there. I don't want to, you know, just out of respect, I don't want to throw names and all these stuffs around, but there's this engineer there, and he tells me, hey man, don't watch over my shoulder. And I'm just like, I'm a kid. I'm interested in the process. I'm like 14 or yeah, I'm like 15. I'm at this point, at this stage, I was like 15, 16. But I was just like, I'm interested in the process. So why are you telling me not to look over your shoulder? And he says, well, for years, I went to school. I paid for this building. I put money into this. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. Like, I had to learn all of this. If you're going to learn any of this, like, you're going to pay for it. You know, you're going to intern for me, or you're going to, you're going to go to college and put your own money up for it. And I was just like, astonished, but I understood him. So I just backed up, and I used my eagle eyes. From the very back of the room, I would record my cut, get on the couch, and I would just hawk. Like, I didn't care what anybody else was saying in the studio. I would just hawk down his screen and take mental notes of the EQ. And as he was EQing things, as he was setting up different gates, as he was setting up different noise gates and compressions, I was taking note of the numbers. I was taking note of the ratios. I was taking note of what each click, what each shape did to the sound every time it came back to me. And that made me understand some things that were going wrong in my mixes at home, where I was like, oh, okay, that's what I was missing. That's what I was missing. And then I would go home, and literally it only took that one session, because I went home, I opened up my EQ, opened up my own reverb and stuff. I duplicated the ratios. I duplicated the shape. And duplicating the shape wasn't enough to get the sound perfect, but it was enough to guide me in the right direction of that one thing that was going wrong with my sound. And to be specific, I did have a sound that was too muddy, and that little EQ shape that I learned was the high pass filter. And when I learned what the high pass filter was for, and how key or not key it was to certain sounds that I was trying to get in my tracks, I began to understand more, and I was able to look up my own specific EQ techniques and specific compression techniques that I wanted, because now I knew, oh, these techniques have names. You know, this wasn't just a random shape I saw on the screen. Like, it's called a high pass filter. So there must be other versions of EQ. There must be other versions of compression. There must be some way that this is being set up by these people who've already done it. So I went and learned it, you know, off the internet, and then going to other studios and repeating the process. But I'm not going to lie, other engineers were a lot more helpful. They weren't all like that. It was just that one that really drove me to that feeling of like, man, you gonna do me like that? Like, all right, I got you. And I'm not gonna lie, I command 10 times as high as a price as he does today. So
and I tell you what, in listening, and this is something I really want our viewers to catch, like, and I've always said this phrase, dedication to the craft. And just you explaining that story and the self-teaching, the really paying attention, the focus, knowing that you're in this to do something, you know, to do something big, to do something great. And just the way that you describe, you know, the detail, the attention, you're schooling a lot of people out here and letting people know, look, when you get into this, this is just scratching the surface of how serious you need to be, how knowledgeable you need to be, applying that and constantly learning. So I'm really, really happy that you threw some game out there. You're schooling a lot of people, even like you said, people who have, quote, been in it longer. But one thing I hope people take away, nobody questions your drive and your focus, and that you really are knee deep in this.
Yeah, I'm neck deep. I'm drowning.
So let me ask you this. So here you are, and I'm glad that we're having this talk so people know before they see you where you are. You've explained what you've worked through in order to get here. What would you say would be the next creative challenge for you? And I know that there's a bunch of them, but what would you say is something that would, quote, give you a little pushback to make your skill set even stronger than it is?
The next creative challenge for me that would give me pushback to make my skill set even stronger. All right, there are two that I'm really focused on right now. The first one is working close with music supervisors on getting my music placed in more movies and TV shows and commercial usage, because I know that what they need in the music and what I'm currently putting in the music, there's somewhat of a gap. And it's not that what I'm doing right now is bad. My fans definitely love it. There's definitely a crowd for it. But the gap between the way I kind of creatively go for different aesthetic sounds and then what the actual commercial market wants for, you know, that background track for a race scene, or the background music for a shootout or for an opening, you know, the sound that they're looking for and the sound that I'm pushing out, that gap is what I wish to close. I don't want to be another artist who has to constantly just be pitched and pitched and pitched and pitched. I want to have a relationship with people who understand where I came from creating music, where I'm trying to head, and then how I can use that music to better line out, you know, their media projects, whether it be their movies or their short films. And then the second thing that I want to do to close that gap is just work with not just bigger talent as far as like where they're at in their career, but higher quality people who have access to more tools, more gear, more analog stuff in studio, whether they be older or younger guys, just people who are excelling in areas where I'm not. I'm really good at digital equipment. I'm really good at ideating sounds and bringing them to life. But there's that one guy who can run flows and racks all analog, and he can do it like it's the back of his hand. Like, I want to learn that skill. There's this guy who knows film editing like the back of his hand. He knows all the programs. He knows all the lenses. I don't want to just be the rapper on set getting the music video shot. After I'm off camera, I want to go back behind that camera set and be like, hey, bro, like, how are you editing this? Like, what's going on? Like, I want to be in that experience. And really, I just want to close the gap between the people I want to serve in the industry and the creativity that I want to reach and the people I want to work with and reach that creativity with. Those are the only really two gaps I'm looking to close, build strong relationships with those people.
I tell you what, based on what you've been able to describe, explain, share, I'll just go ahead and say it's just a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. I think everybody who's watching, everybody who's going to watch, and everyone who's going to pay attention is going to see, like, you're clear, you're focused. You know that there's more on the horizon for you. And like I said before, I'm just blown away. Seriously, I'm really just blown away with you sharing your story. I truly am.
I'm blown away with you giving me the opportunity to be here and speak. Like, honestly, all right. So I have my whole business development map right here. And one thing that I didn't predict from my last rollout was that I would get on Clubhouse, meet you, and that you would bring me this opportunity to speak. So now I'm reformatting for my next album release. I just got off the Dog Fox Leash EP run. The next EP we're about to run is Don't Be Afraid to Bloom in the Dark. And as I'm setting up the digital platforms, the digital channels that we're going to be pushing on, I'm like, man, should I find a way to push, not really push the music via Clubhouse, but push my presence via Clubhouse to then draw the people I'm seeking into my music? Because I realize Clubhouse is allowing for not just target direct marketing, but it's getting so precise as to where, like, okay, journalist is a part of the key relationships I need to have in this business development canvas. People like you who give me these opportunities. And originally I was reaching them through, okay, my streams are going up on SoundCloud, my streams are going up on Spotify, I got numbers going up on socials from the campaigns that I'm running. Let me get my assistant to scour this and watch who's watching me. And as they watch who's watching me, we then go and find the separation between fans and then people in the industry who we can leverage. And I'm like, damn, that's a process. But then as I'm getting ready to gear up for this opportunity, I'm tracking, okay, I'm about to get a journalistic opportunity for my music. Where is this coming from? And as I was tracking it, it came from something that wasn't even on our business map, which is Clubhouse. And I'm like, oh, I got an opportunity coming straight from Clubhouse. Well, how fast did it take to develop? And when I tracked that, the relationship we built, me even getting on this platform, this whole interaction developed faster than any other business relationship coming from any other platform during the campaign run. And Clubhouse wasn't even a part of the strategy for development. So now I'm trying to see, is there a way I can implement that into my next rollout to get more people like you, even more people like myself, and get relationships and the things that we do in these relationships developing and pumping out faster? Because the only thing that separates me from my goals and the people who I'm going to work with from their goals is how fast we get together and make things happen.
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad, I'm glad we had that conversation. And like you said, it evolved over what, maybe like week and a half?
Yes, quick.
But it comes back to, having this platform. And again, there are some great people doing great things. and it's about documenting and sharing. And like you said before, and that's a whole nother topic, you never know who's watching you. You never know who's paying attention. And you never know, there might be that one thing that you say or share that kind of sparks and motivates on so many levels. What we're going to do right now is, I know the track that you sent me, we're going to go ahead and give them a little bit of a quick teaser. So that way, a lot of the things that you were talking about, they'll go ahead and get a chance to listen to. So we're going to play the proverbial, we're going to play enough of a snippet to whet the appetite. And then once the appetite's set, we'll make sure that you are letting people know now where can they go and get the meal. So sit tight for a moment, and our team's going to go ahead and get that track up. And it should be, make sure I have it correct, it should be Blase. That should be the track that you sent.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have that up right about now.
Blase.
Yeah.
I don't want hoes, I want houses. Money on hundreds of thousands. You can find me what allowed it. Music and move in the background. And this dude cooking in the cold. 3 times away on my coat. 3 women tapping my phone. I'd rather tell what I smoke. Photovoltaic on my neck. Photovoltaic flex. All the more creative tech. Billionaire boys in the debt. Went to Atlanta to flex. Smoking on nickel in the test. You know my gas is electric.
All right, so we just played a little bit of Blase, and it was great to hear, like you said, all those different things you talked about coming together. It's almost like the classic, we got this gumbo, and we're mixing all these things in the pot. And I tell you what, that's a good appetizer. So now that we've gotten everybody's appetite together, and as we get ready to wind down your segment, let people know the best ways to stay connected with you, engaged, where to download your tracks, all that type of stuff.
All right. The best way to stay connected with me is text me +1 501 508 0396 +1 if you're out the country. 501 508 0396. Got iMessage, got WhatsApp. I like to stay in contact with people personally. If you want to engage with me, social media, all social media is TSUKIXKAMI. TSUKIXKAMI. That's Suki X Kami on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube channel, Tsukiyomi, SoundCloud, all that. Don't forget to follow me on Spotify. I'll be bringing up all types of talent, working on different projects. Shouts out my producer, Night Shift, out in Canada. He's right now in London, Ontario. He's the one who produced Blase, and he produced the Dog Fox Leash EP. And the next EP is produced by Chroma Key. Don't Be Afraid to Bloom in the Dark is on the way. He's also out of Canada. He's out of Quebec, Montreal.
Well, I tell you what, thank you so much for taking and making the time. I tell you what, it was part journalist, part like, gosh, this guy is real good and real knowledgeable. So seriously, thank you for taking and making the time. Best wishes, seriously. I know this was our first time, but I know it won't be our last. So best wishes, real talk, with everything that you're working on. Seriously. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go to our commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to bring on our next guest on the Conversation Corner.
Thanks, guys.
Doing good, but doing it greater. That's what Crave Community Solutions is all about. From education services ranging from ACT and SAT prep, press and media services covering sports and other events, and more, make sure to reach out to us today so we can help you make it happen too. All About the Authors airs every second and fourth Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to connect with them, as well as the co-hosts Celebrity Source Tyra Satai and author Andrew Snorton. And make sure to check out this past Sunday's edition with L.D. Wells and Francine Brakefield. Photography, storytelling, it's the A. Make sure to get your copy of Black Atlanta, written and photographed by Francine Brakefield. It's a great retrospective in showing the growth and evolution of Atlanta, its people, its culture, and more. So check it out. Poems, essays, inspiration, a foreword by Ruby D., all about sisterhood. An anthology of sisterhood, a compilation of 22 Shades of Red. Get your copy today, written by L.D. Wells and Francine Brakefield.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, on the Conversation Corner. I know our in-studio guests, I know you're getting situated. We see you. We see you. I tell you what, when it comes to doing work in press and media marketing, there are a number of quality people. And we're really excited to have another one of those from, and to make sure I'm pronouncing it correct, it's Mernae, correct? Oh, we need your, you know what? You forgot to get your mic. Hold on. It happens, ladies and gentlemen. Look at here, look at here, look at here.
Gotcha.
No wonder it happens. Hey, look, we had to throw a little bit of comedy, make sure y'all were paying attention. So now we've got everything situated. It happens, ladies and gentlemen. It's television. So we've got Mr. Chris Banks here in the studio representing, and make sure I'm pronouncing it correct. Is it pronounced Mernae? Mernae. We got that correct. So, Mr. Banks, how are you doing this evening?
Doing all right.
Good to see you. Good to be seen. Now, before getting into the work that you're doing, give our viewers a little bit of a background regarding where you're based out of and what are some of your other moving parts before you really went even knee deep, or as our previous guest said, neck deep into the work that you're doing.
Right. Well, I'm based here out of Atlanta, right? So, an Atlanta native, went off to school at Savannah State, experienced a lot at the HBCU, especially with promotions and marketing, advertising, communications, just in general. Got my real start in music, so kind of like what the last guest was saying, got my start in music, and that's really kind of what brought me to what it is. I did a lot of internships at Atlantic Records, intern for Convict, intern for Warner Music Group in the marketing department. So I learned a lot about how marketing works for artists as well as just for clients in general.
Okay, great. And like you said, people forget the importance of internships, and there's so much you learn. It's really, quote, helping you scratch the surface, getting a better working idea and a template. So now let me ask you this. You have these different moving parts. You're learning this. You've been with this label, this piece. What would you say was the impetus or the catalyst to say, hey, I've learned all this stuff. Let me put it together and put my own strategy or my own business together?
Wow. Well, to kind of go back to answer that question, I've had Mernae since about 2012, right? So Mernae has been mine, an established company that I've had since 2012, but it hasn't always been the primary focus. So it wasn't until about 2019, 2020 that it really started to become more of a thing that I said, okay, I've learned a lot. I've fallen on my face a lot. I've gotten up. This hasn't worked out. This idea hasn't worked out. This plan hasn't worked out. But now I'm finally at a place and at a point where I think that this will work. If I pull this together, if I put this together through my experiences and through the lessons that I've learned, I believe that we can actually forge and make some leeway.
And I'm glad that you said that, because sometimes it's like we get started on something and sometimes it's a proverbial life happens, or we feel like we'll get to it when we feel like it, or maybe not now's the time, or, all these types of things. What would you say during that process was the real moment of clarity where it's like, you know what, for lack of a better term, I've been playing around with this too long. I need to get serious with it?
It had to probably be last summer, right? So the pandemic hit, everybody's at home. For me, everything was just kind of going crazy. So trying to just make sure that I can provide for my family, traveling back and forth to work, opportunities that are in front of me are starting to seem like they're drying up. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? And then it just kind of slapped me across the face. It was like, well, you have the experience and you have the connections. What are you waiting on? It's not just going to come out and ask you, hey, Chris, do you think this is something that you can do today? You have to kind of seize the moment. And literally, a moment came for me to be able to reinvent myself and my company through the job that I was doing by contracting myself back out. And when that happened, I kind of just took it and ran with it.
Now, okay, and I'm glad that you shared that because sometimes, and I remember during the fall, one of our guests, and I'm paraphrasing what she said about out of chaos comes creativity. And definitely it's been some chaotic times. You might have heard the last, since March, basically. So walk us through some of, under your company's umbrella, walk us through the essential services that you provide.
Okay, well, Mernae Media Group is a marketing firm, but we really design holistic marketing services, and that's anywhere from marketing plans to social media plans, content creation, as well as deliverables, logos, envelopes, letterhead, all of the little things. But that's really kind of about where we are as far as the digital age. But I combine my expertise along with my team's expertise of traditional marketing techniques with the new digital footprint. So how can we combine those two in order to really make an impact? Because you have some phenomenal people out there who are all over social media. I don't pride myself on being the best, strategist on social media, but I've learned it, and I've learned a lot of things, especially from what's going on. And you have to keep up with these social mediums. And so since I already know that I don't know everything, I try to learn as much as I can, but I try to keep the people around me who do know those things so that I can learn from them.
And I'm glad that you shared that because with your business, yes, you're the fearless leader, you're the captain of the ship, but you have to have a capable crew. And it sounds like anybody that's building a team, you are identifying people's strengths, you're putting them in a position to use those strengths, so it's helping you. And in doing that, not only is your team invested, but then when you think about your clients, you're giving them some high quality and really professional service.
Right. That's always the objective, is to make sure that we provide the best service and the highest quality. I mean, whenever you go to anywhere, a restaurant, you want the best. You don't want them to bring you the worst. And so whenever someone signs up with us and they come to us having a need, we want to be able to meet that need and to do it at the highest level possible.
Okay. Share with us and share with our viewers, given the areas that your company moves in, can you point to like an example or two or a project or two where you feel like, hey, this really exemplifies the professionalism, the knowledge base, things along those lines?
Most definitely. So one of the biggest challenges that I had with my company was when we kind of had to be under crunch, working with one of our major clients, Michael Bell, and kind of just helping him to reestablish his brand. He was moving from a previous law firm into his current law firm, the Mike Bell Andrew Law Group, and he wanted to keep his audience, and that can be a difficult thing to do at times, especially when you're when you're flowing from one brand to another, because you don't want to confuse people. So you have a lot that goes into that, and that was a very tedious process in a short time frame, but we were able to get it done.
Wow, and you made a good point, because part of all of us to varying degrees are looking at building our audience, but we sometimes forget about audience retention. Like, what adjustments do you need to make? Because again, your audience, your core, their values might shift. I know it sounds like a business seminar. Well, your values might shift and we're going to make adjustments. But no, but to a degree, I mean, that's what you're doing. And it's great that, like you said before, your client knew, they had an idea what they wanted to do brand-wise, but the execution fell on you and your company. And it's great to hear. It's always great to hear when things go well. I don't want to be like, oh, things went badly, ha, ha, ha. No, it's like, good. Things went well. And not only that, when you talked about leaving a footprint, you're not only leaving a footprint just in general, but you're showing we can do work in this field. We can do work in other fields. So you talked about that branding campaign in regards to law. Can you share with us another project where on paper it's like totally different? Like, how can you go from this area to that area? But walk us through showing like your flexibility.
Well, like I said, my prior experience to just like working with law firms, etc., is in music, and that is a completely different ballgame. It's a completely different formula. So for any artist out there who are trying to make that breakthrough, it's a specific formula that you really have to pay attention to in order to break through that ceiling. But it's still marketing. So one of the biggest tips that I try to give all artists, and especially during A3C, which is one of my favorite festivals to attend, is if you are recording tracks, right, go ahead and record your clean version as well. I think so many times I run into artists and they only have one version, and that's the dirty version. But I always ask the question, what happens if the radio station wants to put you on today? Do you have enough time to go back and edit that out? Because that may be the biggest difference between you being on the radio and you not being on the radio.
And you make an interesting point, and even with the advent of technology where it does allow you to engage or connect with your audience a little bit quicker, we also know, like you're alluding to, you still have to have some elements of your traditional media because, quote, they're already established. They, quote, already have that brand or they already have that reputation. We find new talent or we discover this or discover that. So that's really, really important that you're sharing that. So you've got, again, the marketing pieces, the management pieces, the project plans and what have you. Do you see your company expanding into other aspects? Do you think you're going to stay in this lane, or do you feel like the proverbial you're going to add some tools to your toolbox?
Yeah, so we're working right now to perfect the process, right? Perfect the process. And that's the processes for not just us and how we intake clients, but for us to getting clients to us. But also what we're working on right now is the academy, so that for those users and potential clients who are not quite ready, maybe you don't feel like you're ready to come and solicit our services, you can do some things on your own, and so that's dealing with workbooks as well as webinars on how you can do these things at home, because again, there are certain things that you can do that will help you. And I think one of the biggest things right now is content creation. But if you don't know the process or how to create content, then unfortunately it will be a major setback, because you can create content all day. If you're not posting it the correct way or you're not measuring your analytics, you're not going to see the results that you would like to see.
And it's great that you said that, because there really is, quote, it really is a science. And even though that science is evolving, there are, like you said, some takeaways, even something simple, like you talked about analytics, even something simple of setting up your platforms as a business piece versus a regular piece. That might not sound like that big a deal. I know it's helped me. I'm not going to lie. I know it's helped me, and I know that's probably part of what you do in regards to your action planning. So you've talked about, business-wise. You've talked about, being here. Obviously, like you said, with your ties to music, you've seen, this being a big music hub. But I want to pivot back to something that I think is definitely timely. And I want you to really amplify the HBCU experience, because now it's more in the forefront because of the vice president-elect. But HBCUs have been producing folks. So walk through with us your HBCU experience and how you feel that still diffuses in what you do.
Oh, most definitely. So I go back to my best friends and my wife, right? So when we were in school, I studied, again, communications, and my best friend wanted to run for SGA president. You had Miss Savannah State, you had SGA Chief Justice, and these were like big things on HBCU. These are big positions. Everybody goes out for these positions. And so at the time, I was fortunate enough to be able to just assist and kind of manage all three campaigns. I wasn't running for anything, but that was really kind of what helped me to see that this is something that I truly love and have a passion for. Everybody got elected, so that was a good thing. But it helped me to realize that this is something that I'm truly passionate about. And at HBCUs, they really give you the platform to walk into your own. Is this something that you're passionate about? Is this something that you want to know about? And, let's just be honest, they help to cultivate you. Not saying that you can't get that at any other school, but at HBCU, it's literally like an extension of your family. And so while my tenure at Savannah State University, I really was able to learn a lot from my business professors, learn a lot from my sociology department, humanities. Those were good classes. You got a chance to speak your mind and argue a little bit, as well as from my communications class. We learned a lot about different communication pieces and things like that. And I really think that where I am now, I can kind of sit back and reflect and say, wow, I can definitely say that if it was not for my experience at Savannah State University, I may not be as talented in the Adobe suite. And that's a thing that a lot of people pay a lot of money to learn how to do. But I learned it for free at school. So maybe I didn't necessarily learn it for free, but I learned it while working on a degree.
And I really wanted to emphasize that because I'll just level with you. The mainstream is finally like, oh, because of our vice president-elect. But people in the know and people in the community, regardless if you went or not, know the importance, the value, the relevance. And I'm going to reinforce the relevance. So just a shameless plug, keep supporting them.
Oh, yeah.
Keep supporting them. And I know there's another thing, and we've got, a little bit of flexibility. There's another thing that I think I'll just take a shot in the dark that probably helped frame a little bit of who you are. That might be your fraternity experience. Could you speak briefly on some of the general things that you've gleaned from being a member of your fraternal organization that you feel honestly translates into other areas?
Definitely. Well, before I say that, big shout out to the Deltas, right? Today is their Founders Day.
Oh, yeah, we got something for them. Real talk. Even our producer's like, yeah, you better have, we got something for y'all.
Yeah, so big shout out to the Deltas. But let's just, the Panhellenic Council, especially being a member of, the fraternity, has really helped you because it helps you grow. But not only just grow, it puts you in front of like-minded individuals, those who want to succeed and those who want to achieve on a high level. And so when you see that all around you have no choice but to either sink or swim. And the thing about it is when you look at these people like your brothers, which that's what we are, we're a brotherhood in the fraternity, you don't let them sink. You always pick them up in order to help them elevate. And the thing about it is it's always a learning process. That's the major thing. It's like a constant mentorship. And, I was fortunate enough to be involved in a mentorship program coming up. And I was fortunate enough to join a fraternity where I'm still learning to this day. And that's the key to it. You want to access your network, but you also want to access the education piece. And we should be teaching one another, whether you're in a fraternity or not, but being in the fraternity definitely helps us to learn at a higher level.
Well, it's great that, and just like with any guest, you're sharing your journey. You're sharing how these pieces of the puzzle have truly come together. The HBCU puzzle, how that is part of your core and how those parlay in your core values. The fraternity piece, how elements of that parlay and frame. You already mentioned family. You mentioned your professional experience. You have all these different things. And it's like, again, this is your recipe. This is your formula. And that formula clearly is playing itself out with your business ventures. What would you say is on the horizon? I know we always have to think of, we got to take care of business now, but where do you see, based on all this stuff and based on how you are continuing to grow and evolve, even during a pandemic, where do you see your company going and growing?
The sky is the limit, honestly, but I definitely see us picking up some more contracts with major or Fortune 500, companies. I definitely see that. Let's just be honest. In a day and time or time and age where the pandemic has really hit us hard and a lot of us are at home, companies have more responsibility now to show their social responsibility to their consumers, to their clients. How am I presented in front of my clients? Am I meeting my clients' needs? And all of that falls back to internal communication as well as marketing. And so for me and my company, we want to help the people that need help achieve that, because I believe that honestly and truly, if you're interested in meeting your client at where they are, your client will always meet you where you are.
Repeat that one more time, because I think that closing statement right there, that was just That was just oozing constructively. Repeat that one more time for our audience.
I really feel like, again, if you're, as the company, willing to meet your client where they are, then your client will always meet you where you are. And a perfect example is when you think about, you go to the company with the chicken and, the white and red, they always tell you the same thing, my pleasure. And you think about it, even if they get the order wrong, they always meet you where you are. And every time we meet our customers where they are, and we exceed that expectation, our customers and our clients will always meet us where we are as companies.
Wow, that's some very sound insight and advice, and that clearly comes from your years. Once again, your education background, your fraternity experience, your community experience, your professional experience, the internship, all these different things are coming together. And for some, this is definitely profound. But for you, this is how we do business here. This is what we do here. And that's awesome and amazing. So again, I'm just trying to think, you've covered a lot of ground. More immediately, because we talked a little bit about intermediate term and long term, but more immediately, what's next?
Expanding the education piece. So as a former educator, I believe in being able to equip people with the tools that they need to be able to move forward. So just because we're in a day and age where technology is so prevalent, right? I meet a lot of people that say, oh, well, I can do it. No problem. I have no problem with you meeting your own needs. But just because I can log onto the internet and I can learn how to do this doesn't mean that I should. Just being honest, I can do a lot of things. If it's not my wheelhouse or my expertise, there's not something that I should do. But more importantly, the reason why I say that is because all information on the internet is not the best information. And so expanding the education piece to be able to equip the user to be able to do basic needs on their own is important. It's very important.
So it sounds like just because you do it doesn't make it a good idea. So moving forward, if I'm ever in the cockpit of an airplane, I should get out. That's what you're telling me?
If you're not certified to fly that plane, you might want to go back to your seat.
But I'm glad you agree with that sentiment. And I'm saying that because, don't get me wrong, all of us to varying degrees are independent, but we all need help. And whether formal or informal, there's some things that you can do, some you might want to pass off. And I think that also ties in with the sound insight and advice that you've shared and you're giving everybody. So what we're going to do at this point, before we go to our last commercial break, please remind our viewers the best ways to stay connected, engaged, and reaching out to take advantage of the business services you provide.
No problem. So you can catch me on all social media platforms at Mernae Media CEO. That's MERNAE Media CEO, as well as www.mernaemedia.com. That's MERNAE media.com.
Well, I tell you what, thank you, Mr. Banks, for going in that depth and detail. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to take our last commercial break, and we'll come back with some closing remarks and then close out the show. So we'll be right back.
Creative, innovative, inspiring, and so much more. This is what 1820 Hats is all about. Make sure to check them out at 1820hats.com and make sure to add them on Instagram at 1820 Hats. That way you and others can live free. Each and every Wednesday, check me out at 1:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Fast 15. This is our opportunity to check up, check in, enjoy a short reading or two, and get our week back on track. So make sure to check me out at my social media as well as Zoom for the Fast 15. Virtuous Essence Incorporated has launched their merchandise line of shirts and other related apparel. Who says that you can't be virtuous and live stylistically and creatively? So make sure to check them out at their website and Instagram today. Don't forget to get a copy of any of my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and select bookstores. And make sure to download the Author's Mixtape audiobook series on the platforms that you see listed and more. Add to your reading and listening library today. And And don't forget to check out the merch that I have available. Right now we have bracelets and mugs, and we'll have more coming soon. And be creative and pair them with a book or two. So make sure to purchase yours at the information provided, and make sure to stay connected with me, the author, Andrew Snorton.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back as we're getting ready to close out the show. But as you've seen, we bring great people across the board in entertainment business, community, and more. We have a couple of announcements that we're going to use to close out tonight's show. And this first one, as we a reminder, politics is local. So we're going to look at this very first one. This was an article that was pulled from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. As we're aware, COVID has been wreaking havoc. And unfortunately for the state of Georgia, in the largest public school system, Gwinnett County, unfortunately, one of the paraprofessionals contracted COVID on the job about 2 weeks before she was set to retire and recently deceased. And as a side note, on January 4th, the Gwinnett County School Board made a recommendation to go ahead and delay instruction for 2 weeks, and they were overruled by their CEO. So recently word came out that next week they're going to go remote, but they haven't made up their mind after that. So I would say I know what school systems do. That's what they do. But in light of a pandemic, we would hope that this is a learning tool, for lack of a better term, so some of these mistakes are not repeated any further. And prayers and condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones. And then we know politics is also national. And the reason why we're using this photo is we're not going to magnify a bunch of foolishness, as we've seen last week and what has been reported for next week. But I will say this regarding the events and the pushback and the shenanigans. And you've seen our network talk about this. The reason why there's certain pushback is because more people are realizing the power of their voice and the power of their vote. So in saying that, we're going to say, what I'm going to say specifically is this: do not operate in fear, but do not operate in foolishness either. So be aware, but continue to be as informed and engaged as possible, because your vote matters, and of course, your voice matters. Now, January 13th, 1913, on the campus of Howard University. This is the founding day of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, as today marks 108 years of operating under the motto, "Intelligence is the torch of wisdom." We want to extend our many thanks, appreciation for all the work that they do across the board, and especially here in Metro Atlanta. Obviously, we got to recognize all the Metro Atlanta chapters, but definitely for my alma mater, the Pi Omicron chapter at Wake Forest University. But again, thank you so much to all the women of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for all of the work that you do. January 15th, 1908, Howard University, Minor Hall. This is the founding date of the first intercollegiate sorority designed for African American women, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. January 15th marks 113 years of excellence, work across the public and private sector, prominent figures who have done amazing things, from Dr. Maya Angelou to even locally women such as Karen Greer in journalism and media. We want to take this moment to say thank you to all the members of this highly respected and appreciated sorority. We also want to give a couple of quick shouts to Chi Omega Omega chapter based in Chicago for the work that they do. Don't get me wrong, we're happy for everyone, but of course I want to give a special shout to our family members, the Pi Beta chapter seated at Wake Forest University. So thank you for all that you do. January 16th, 2020, the campus of Howard University, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated gets its start and its founding day. And on January 16th, they celebrate 101 years, working under the principles that you see right there: scholarship, service, sisterhood, finer womanhood. We want to take a moment to say thank you for all of the hard and tireless work that is done within our communities, our workspaces and places, and more. So again, we want to thank you for all that you do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to call it a show. Last reminder, our next live broadcast will be January 27th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This will be the second part of our Her Story series. So if you'd like to get caught up on that, go back to our December 23rd, 2020 show. We are going to announce those guests next week on our social media and related platforms. But again, join us for Her Story, which is chronicling the impact of women in the public sector. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Conversation Corner on the Status Network, the live TV channel. Until next time, take very good care. And one last thing, remember the upcoming Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Thank you to Dr. King for the work that you've done, and make sure to check out things in your community. We'll see you soon.
But if you want to do a lady a favor, here's what you want to do. Until the next time I see you, you know what? Last $2, not gonna lose. You last $2, not gonna lose. One dose of my best friend. You better run some $2, so I can hear me some more. So I wouldn't be ready. If my man happened to me right, I never in this casino, 'cause he's been creeping out every night.
This is the author, Andrew Snorton, the host of the Conversation Corner, airing every second and fourth Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Status Network, the live TV channel. We're so excited to have the Ear Candy Experience as our official music sponsor. So make sure to check out the show and make sure to check them out. And remember, let's have a conversation.